welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 268 on the 7th of December 2013. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. December already. Yes, all right. Stay there. Christmas is coming, folks. Oh, I do like Christmas. I must admit, I do like Christmas. And this year I'll be spending Christmas Day in beautiful California in the San Francisco Bay Area. Looking forward to that. But what can we look forward to on this episode of the Skeptic Zone? We're going to kick off with Maynard's spooky action. More great interviews from the Australian Skeptics National Convention. Maynard's going to be chatting to Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters Group. More great information from a group of dedicated people up in the far north bit of New South Wales fighting the anti-vaccination movement. Then he's going to be chatting to an old friend of ours, Postie Linley from Victoria, and wrapping up his series of interviews on this week's show with Eran Segev. Eran Segev's going to be chatting about, are Jews trying to take over the world? Probably not. See what Eran Segev has to say about this interesting conspiracy theory. After that, it's a week in science from our friends at the Royal Institution of Australia, www.riaus.org.au, and coming up soon on the Skeptic Zone, an extended interview with Dr. Paul Willis. And happy birthday, Dr. Paul Willis. He's now entered the second part of the century, his own personal century, so to speak. Congratulations, Dr. Willis, and what a pleasure, an absolute pleasure it is to have you as a regular part of the Skeptic Zone. Don't worry, Paul, I'll catch up to you in a couple of years. Save that over 50s parking spot for me. After a week in science, a little bit more news from an upcoming talk in Canberra by Lawrence Krauss. And then a quick catch up with Brian Dunning from the Skeptoid podcast, who's going to tell us all about his new book. Those Skeptoid books are really great. And it's a great way for people who don't listen to podcasts to find out all sorts of interesting bits and pieces. That's coming up a little bit later on in the show. And then to round off the show, I chat a little bit about a recent television appearance I did talking about witchcraft. Well, to be honest, they asked me 4 or 5 questions, most of which I answered in a positive fashion, but of course the TV program cut all those out and just used the 2 where I was putting up the Skeptics Challenge and saying things like magic spells are nonsense. It's a pity they didn't keep the others, because they asked me if the Australian Skeptics had a problem with people performing witchcraft or being witches. I said, no, of course not. You know, what do you think this is, the Dark Ages? Sigh. Anyway, coming up later on in the show, I talk a little bit about that. And I go into some detail about the Australian Skeptics $100,000 challenge, because I'm a little bit tired of the misconceptions out there and the people coming back with the same old chestnuts year after year. So if you're interested in the Australian Skeptics $100,000 challenge and what it's all about and is it fair and so on, listen towards the end of the show. And with the birds, there must be some parrots outside today. Hang on, it's okay. Pick up the microphone. Walk over. Let's open. Excuse me, Christmas hat. You go over there. Let's open the window. And the birds are chirping. The sun is setting. What a lovely scene it is. Well, I can just gaze out the window and listen to the cars zooming down the street, or I can run downstairs. I can open the pantry. I can get out a jar of cookie nookie. Heavens above. And while I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
We're here to a slightly lesser-known corner of the National Conference here. In fact, there's some rather unusual artworks on the wall that look not unlike coal, a petrified wood, or maybe an old cat poo. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
It's certainly provocative, that's for sure.
Well, being in the CSIRO, it would have to be something to do with science, surely.
Yeah, I'm going to go with coal or petrified wood. They don't do a lot of research into cat poo.
Do you know that for certain? Where's your citation for that?
Well, they're always looking at, citation needed. I imagine they would look at scat from time to time, but maybe they weren't painting with it. Anyway, well, we're here in the corner, and, look, hang on this side, there's ones that are completely blank.
If you look closely, they are not, in fact, blank. I thought they were blank too. I was going to come over and get them off the wall and do my own artwork on them, but apparently there's already artwork there.
That would not be welcome. But it's very good to bump into you. Last time I spoke to you was at Skeptic Camp in Sydney. Now tell us who you are and what you've been up to since then.
Okay. Yes, I'm Heidi Robertson. I'm a member and an administrator of the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters Group. So we're a group of concerned community members up in the Northern Rivers region where, as most of you probably know, we have dangerously low levels of immunisation. So we're working with people and the community in order to try and raise the levels of immunisation up there.
And how difficult has it been so far?
Well, personally, it's been really difficult. It's been a huge challenge for me coming out as a pro-vaxxer in that sort of a community, but I'm out and I'm loud and proud now. And we haven't come up against too much resistance yet, but I think it's because we're relatively new on the scene and a lot of people don't know about us yet. So maybe when our profile becomes a bit more widespread amongst certain groups, then we might cop a bit more grief. But so far, we've had a largely very positive response. And it's been interesting to note that a lot of members in the Northern Rivers community are very much pro-vaccination, but they just don't have the loud voice that some of the anti-vaccination crowd have.
How do you feel about having a debate with the anti-vaccination crowd? Some people think that having a debate with them gives them a little bit more standing than they should have just by having the debate in the first place. Or do you think that's an important thing to engage with the community and do that?
I don't think there is a debate as far as vaccination's concerned. Certainly, as far as science and medical research goes, there is no debate. Vaccination, if you look at the risk-benefit analysis of it, vaccination is a no-brainer. And nobody is saying, no pro-vaxxer is saying that there are not risks involved in vaccination. That's not what we're saying at all. We're saying we are here to explain the risks to you and explain the risk-benefit to you, and then to go away with the right information in order to make the right decision. And there's so much misinformation out there, and what we're saying is that we're making a pledge to put the right information out there so you can make a good decision. So we've got a website now that's up and running, and we're adding more and more information to it all the time. It's northernriversvaccinationsupporters.org. And you can go there. There's lots of links, as well as all of our lots of personal stories about how we've been affected by vaccine-preventable diseases. There's also a contact form. If anybody has specific concerns or questions about vaccination, they can privately email us through that contact form, and we will answer the questions for them with good, solid scientific evidence.
What seems to be the one piece of misinformation that people have asked you about so far that people seem to have out there that you've been able to maybe help people with?
Oh, there's so many. There's still that lingering, vaccine causes autism thing that is still out there, which has, of course, been totally debunked time and time again, but it keeps rearing its head. Another really popular one is that the too many too soon myth. myth that all these vaccines overwhelm a baby's immune system, which is absolute nonsense. Babies apparently get exposed to between 2,000 and 6,000 different immune challenges every single day. It's inconceivable that the vaccine schedule, the Australian vaccination schedule, in any way overwhelms a baby's immune system.
Now, for someone like me, and I asked people this, and I asked Dr. Raichi this, and everyone's got a bit of a different answer. If someone like me wanted to have the whooping cough vaccination, would that be a useful thing? Because I don't know if I'm coming into contact with children. I don't know when. I don't know if I'm a carrier. Is that a very useful thing for someone my age to do or not?
Well, look, Maynard, I'm not a doctor, and I won't give medical advice. So I can give you the information that I do know, which is that whooping cough, the pertussis vaccination, generally wears off within about 10 years of having had it. So, yes, it is important probably for adults, especially who are in close contact with babies who haven't yet been able to complete the immunisation schedule, to have that booster. But the best thing that you can do if you're unsure and you want to know about it is to go and talk to your GP, and they can give you the best advice on that.
Okay, so that's a good sensible result what we got from that. I asked you a question, you said you didn't know, but it pointed me to someone that might know. Now, that doesn't always happen in this life, does it? You ask someone, they go, this is what you should do now.
Oh, well, that's right, and that's what we really want to get across to people. I'm a mum. I don't have much of a science background. I was an ambulance paramedic, so that's sort of my field. I do first aid courses, but so if I don't know the answer to a question, I won't make something up. I'll point you to the people who can answer the question for you, and that's the same as all the administrators in our group. We do have an ICU specialist in there that knows a lot of stuff about about medicine. That's her job, but we really want to. Our members are. We want to focus on mums talking to mums, dads talking to dads, doctors talking to other doctors, the peer-to-peer approach. And yes, if we don't know the answer, we'll go away, we'll find out, and we'll come back to you with the correct information.
Now, have you been accused of being a shill for anybody yet?
Of course.
Already? Wow, okay. I thought give it time, but no, straight away, hey?
No, it goes without saying. If you're on Facebook in any type of anti-vaccination forum, inevitably you'll be called a farmer shill at some point. Apparently I'm a farmer shill, which was news to me, but still waiting for the cheque in the mail, as they say.
And where can we go to find out more about what you're doing and maybe see what you're up to?
Mainly it's the website, northernriversvaccinationsupporters.org, and we also have an open Facebook page now as well. And we don't actually allow comments on that Facebook page purely because what we were saying before, we don't think there's a debate. So what we are doing is just putting information there with credible sources, and if people have any specific questions, to get in touch with us via our email address, which is on the website. So either Facebook, Northern Rivers Supporters, or the website.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the national conference today.
Thank you, you too.
You can't go too far at any Skeptics gathering without bumping into Postie Linley.
You got the wrong Sinatra.
Hey, Postie Linley, you have got the wrong Sinatra. Look, I was dressed as the wrong Sinatra temporarily last night when I had that hat on.
You were.
I was doing the Frank Sinatra tribute show called You Got the Wrong Sinatra, briefly.
And I just saw a picture of you cuddling a Dalek too.
Well, I was asking that Dalek the hard questions.
I took a photo of Paul Willis with his blow-up Dalek that he brought.
Stroke of genius for the Canberra Skeptics to auction off their sets.
Yes.
Because they don't have to, everything's sold. They don't have to pack up. No. They just have to lug in, and then they sell everything and they walk home.
Absolutely perfect. Although I wanted a book and I didn't get a book. But
what has been the main attraction this weekend for you for this National Skeptics Conference, Postie Linley?
Actually, I like to talk with Graham Wilson before on Simpson and his donkey.
Got to say, that's been my favourite as well, because it was something I didn't know about. Yeah. Something I thought was just a piece of propaganda in the first place, but he was explaining why it's important to reveal it as such.
And he is definitely passionate in Australian war history, and it absolutely showed. It just sort of drew me in, and I think, well, I can go out and maybe buy a book on the Simpson donkey that he's got for sale.
Well, it obviously covers all sorts of areas. Is there an area? I know you've thought about giving a talk a few times. You think is there a talk you're going to be giving at some stage, Postie Linley?
I always want to do a talk on Frederick Valentich, though publicly speaking, I'll probably end up in tears. But no, Frederick Valentich, he disappeared over Bass Strait in 1978. Bloody-da, UFO conspiracy maybe. Maybe he's been found in Russia. And also there's lobsters involved.
Because one of the stories he gave as to why he was going to King Island, wasn't it?
King Island to maybe pick up some lobsters or just flying there as an experience trip, because he was not a well-experienced flyer, but he had little nighttime flight experience.
I've already argued with Mr. Brian Dunning about this on this very show before, and because I'm always interested in that metallic noise at the end that was coming from the radio. What was that?
What I think it could be is, he's doing silly stuff in the air. He's come across onto the ocean, skidding across the ocean, and that's what the sound could be. Steve Roby, the flight traffic control guy, he was actually a postie back a long time ago, and I remember seeing I remember watching Unexplained Mysteries, which was rebroadcast, and
I've actually seen that episode.
Yeah, and he came up on telly, and I thought, it's a guy from work. So I spoke to him about it, and he believes that it could have been something. He's disappeared, obviously, but Steve kind of believes that it could have been a UFO, but I don't think he really does. He's sort of on borderline about it. But, Frederick Valentich's father believed that he was abducted by UFOs. His mother and father did. They want to keep that going because they would rather believe that he's captured by aliens and actually dead. And he's dead, buried, wrapped in plastic maybe, you never know.
Postie Linley, you like going down that skeptic rabbit hole, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. But Valentich and the Philadelphia experiment is my favourite as well.
Wow, that one's all over the place, that one.
Yeah, that's just... The movie, I think, got me when it was first on with, what's his name, Michael Paré, and ever since then it's sort of been one of those topics I like looking into every now and then. And
I think if you look into that particular conspiracy, it involves men sitting naked in chairs at one stage, I believe.
That and just melted bodies in a ship, all that sort of stuff,
Well, what do you make of Canberra? What sort of tone has the Canberra Skeptics Conference got to it?
It's quite nice, actually. It's smaller than the Melbourne Skeptics, but it's still quite... there's been no troubles. The talks have been great. Yesterday I just wandered off for a push bike ride around town, which was Linda Blair didn't turn up until late.
That's right, because Linda Blair has also been in Canberra, coincidentally, at this weekend, but she didn't turn up at the bookshop.
Her flight was delayed by 3 hours, and I think there was something in that. There could be some sort of conspiracy, but you never know. So it was delayed 3 hours. I couldn't make it because we had dinner and, bad luck. So, yeah.
But at least you got a book to read about Simpson and his donkey.
Yes, I would like to know a little bit more about that, especially how many people he could not carry on a donkey with one of the slides he showed, which is pretty much everyone, unless you had a graze to your knee, and that's everyone else bugger off. You can find the meat wagon.
And of course, you're hopping on your motorbike riding back to Melbourne?
No, I came up in a car this time. My motorbike's being serviced, so it's...
Every time I speak to you, there's either been some minor accident and it's not particularly usable or something.
I met a bus. I met the back of a bus and ended up in the gutter, and there's Paul Willis. Where's his Dalek?
I tell you what, I just find it amazing that, just you be careful on that motorbike. It's Melbourne.
Yeah, it's Melbourne. It's fine. If it's not on my push bike, if it's not falling off my push bike, it's falling off my motorbike, and you just get back on.
Well, actually, someone we haven't heard much from this weekend because he's been out the back doing deals is, of course, the head of the Australian, or the ex-head of the Australian Skeptics. That's why you weren't doing enough deals. So who we got here?
Hi, it's Eran Segev.
Now, you're now a freeman of the land, I believe they call you.
No, that's somebody else. That's some other quack.
Now, what did you have a chat about today?
I spoke about, the title of the talk was How Jews Rule the World, but it really was not about that. It was more about how the perception arose that Jews rule the world, or more prominent than they should be. And I looked into some historical statistics first, and Jews are indeed in many areas more prominent than you would expect them to be based on just their numbers in society. But I also presented evidence as to how prominent they are in certain areas, and also looked into possible reasons as to why that has happened, historical reasons. And should I go into my conclusion?
Well, actually, yeah. At what point did this really come out? At what point did everyone go, okay, it is the Jews' fault? Was there a point where you actually were able to nail it down quite clearly?
When you say it is the Jews' fault, you mean about Jesus?
Yes, because that was one of the things you brought. And also, being Jewish, was it cathartic at all to do this?
No. I mean, in all the things in all the ways that I define myself, Jewish is not one of the top three. It's probably not one of the top five. I mean, probably amateur astronomer comes before Jew, and definitely parent, skeptic, IT guy, and and other things. Science lover come before that. But it is something that is obviously part of my upbringing and part of the culture of my family and people around me. At least some people around me. The reference to the Jesus thing was that I started looking at some of the things that worked against Jews over the years, and I mentioned the Jesus thing and showed an image, a medieval image of Jesus being kissed by Judas. So it definitely is something that has always worked against the Jews, but in Christian medieval Europe, that's when things really became very bad. And again, it's the kind of things that we see today with Judaism, with Jews being in prominent positions, especially in the West, in many areas. That is something that, to a large extent, not completely, but to a large extent, arose out of that.
And did you get any interesting questions at the end of it there? Were there a few people that wanted to pick you up on anything, or people who wanted a clarification? Yeah,
I got really interesting questions about, just clarifications about all kinds of things that I mentioned, because obviously people here are less likely to know about Jewish culture, so there was just questions about that. There was one person who quizzed me about my conclusion that genetics doesn't have much to do with it, if anything at all. And he gave me some pointers for things to look at. I must admit that there are things that I'm not 100% sure about with regards to genetics, but overall, I think the case for culture is so compelling that it would be very difficult to overturn it. So even if genetics does play some role, it is probably not a significant role. And the main reason that genetics probably doesn't play a major role in the success of Jews in the world today is that Jews are not one group genetically. So if there were one group, then you might say, okay, well, it makes sense, but they're not. So, and I showed that using some family photos that show that I have Mongol ancestry, despite my European look. Oh. So.
And there's a few. Since we're talking Judaism here, there's a few things that, and I know you don't speak for the entire Jewish faith.
Of course I do. We all do. Every one of us.
Of course, that's right. There's a few things I've heard mentioned on podcasts, just fleetingly about in atheist podcasts about in Judaism in the US, that they talk about the self-hating Jew, the concept of that. And I have no idea what that means. Is it an insult? Is it something to do with Judaism? Where does that come into it?
Okay. Every Jew who comes out publicly in criticism of Jews, as not specific Jews, but Jews as Jews, or Israel.
So you're talking more of the state of Israel, not so much criticism of the religion as such.
Yeah, well, it can be anything. That's the thing. It's a good way of basically saying that they hate themselves, they're ashamed of their heritage and all that, and that's why they have the criticism. Now, as somebody who is originally from Israel but has a lot of criticism of Israel, I would probably, if I went, I mean, I'm not a political person in terms of my public life, and but I guess if I voiced my opinions about Israel's policies in public, I would be given the same treatment of a self-hating Jew. But I don't know. It's just a thing. It's just a way. It's a bit like, I'm sure truthers have, it's like sheeple. It's almost like that. It's the kind of thing you say about the people that you don't like. So it's not.
And also, I've been talking to some linguistic people about the word pogrom, which as a kid I thought was a violent riot against people. I later learned it was a violent riot against Jews. I later learned it was a violent state-sponsored program against Jews.
Yes.
But I've now heard the word being used to describe other state-sponsored activities against different groups. Do you think it can ever be used in any other context?
I think one of the things, one of the jokes I made during my talk was I mentioned the Anti-Defamation League, which is and I said that it's an American organization that gets offended on behalf of Jews. I just don't know. I think this sensitivity about, you can't use the Holocaust. You can't joke about the Holocaust. You can't say that something is like the Holocaust. And similarly, pogroms. I think we're getting a little bit precious about it. I don't think anybody can accuse me of not being sensitive to what the Holocaust means. I've had family lost in the Holocaust. I'm acutely aware of the significance of the Holocaust, not just to the Jewish people, but to civilization in general. I think it's probably, if anything, I probably overemphasize its importance. The fact that it's that important does not mean that other people did not have atrocities. How should I say? Did not. I can think of for example, of the Armenian problem with Turkey. Okay, so you could say, okay, but Armenians, only 1.2 million Armenians died, and they really weren't exterminated in camps, and really the Turks didn't really mean to kill them all. They just meant to exile them, drive them out. But the reality is that 1.2 million Armenians, which was more than half of the Armenian population of the world at the time, perished during something that was clearly well organized and violent activity. Whether so do you use the word Holocaust? What difference does it make? Why is it offensive to Jews that the word Holocaust is being used to something else? Similarly to pogroms, if the word fits, then use it. So it's not exactly the definition of the word. So what? I just don't understand that sensitivity. But I'm not a very sensitive person.
And what do you think most people have gotten out of this weekend here? It's got a slightly different flavour being in Canberra, being organised by the Canberra Skeptics. What do you think has been the flavour, the conspiracy flavour this weekend?
First of all, I thought that this was the perfect place for you to be. First of all, I thought a lot of the talks were very, very interesting and very good. Overall, I thought it was. We still have a couple of talks left, but it was a very good conference. I thought it was good talks, good organisation. Really, just I couldn't find faults in anything that happened here. I thought the humour around the conspiracies, and where everybody here called Agent Smith, and the little gags that they had with not providing information and or appearing not to provide information. I thought it was cute, and I thought kudos to them. I thought they've done a really great job.
And of course, of all, you got your head across a few conspiracies. Of all the conspiracies, even though there might be no evidence to say they are valid, is there any that you would really like to be real, or you think, well, that'd be cool if it was real?
Wow, that's a difficult one. No, conspiracy. No, I don't think conspiracy. No, there's a lot of woo that I would like to be. Definitely. Life after death would be great, and being able to contact people after they've died, that would be fantastic. But in terms of conspiracies,
I'm not so sure about that. If everyone had ever died from your family, that goes back quite a way. That would mean there'd be a lot of communication going on. You wouldn't get a lot of peace, really.
Well, if it were optional, it's like people still call me on my phone. I don't have to answer, right?
No, it's great grandma again. No, she can wait. Yeah,
yeah, she can wait. Yeah, I'll just let it go to voicemail.
but what effect would that have upon learning? upon the economy. So you could always go back.
You could talk about conspiracy theories.
Talking to the dead. So if you could talk to Einstein, you could talk to every physicist that had ever been alive. They could update their information. It's almost like that would have a profound effect upon the way we live.
I must admit, as somebody, because I don't think it's happening, I haven't really put my mind to it to that level. I would just, there's just people who are important in my life who have died, and I would like to get in touch with them and just, tell them about my children and things. So it's not that profound. So I couldn't really go to the depths that you've gone into. But
as usual, I'm overthinking it.
Probably, yeah. But in terms of conspiracy theories, I really can't think, because you see, conspiracy theories generally tend to be to assume malevolence and a level of hate or design that, malevolence is probably the best word. I'm trying to probably over describe it. I don't think I would like any to be true. I mean, first of all, it's worth remembering that conspiracies do really happen. What we talk about here about conspiracy theories is those places where you just take the conspiracy to the nth degree, and basically no amount of evidence will convince you that there's no conspiracy, and we know what actually happened, and yet people insist that something else happened and they have no evidence for it. So I can't see any benefit to any conspiracy theories being true.
Now on Belfast FM, we turn to the personal ads. Easygoing and confident skeptic seeks other critical thinkers for fun, laughter and good times. Must be willing to apply logic liberally and a good listener. Expect something new and interesting every month. Come and meet me in Belfast in Northern Ireland. If this sounds like you, check out my profile on belfastskeptics.com. Music by Kevin MacLeod.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus, bringing you the science news you need to know. Koala growls, a surprising ancient relative, and gender on the brain? It's been a good week in science. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Well, not quite. But a new study using brain scans shows that we are wired differently. Neural connections act like a system of roads along which brain traffic travels. Different connections change the way we think, act and function. Big gender-based differences start to appear in adolescence, when females develop better connections between the left and right sides of the brain, while males develop better connectivity within each hemisphere. The male brain seems to be better for perception and coordination, while females are better connected to combine logical and intuitive reasoning. Other researchers have pointed out that there is no evidence that these differences in connections result in differences in behaviour between the sexes. The DNA analysis of a 400,000-year-old human relative has produced an unexpected result. Their remains were found in an underground cave in northern Spain and share many physical characteristics with Neanderthals. However, a DNA analysis showed that the fossil was more closely related to the recently discovered Denisovians, whose home range was not thought to have extended into that region. This raises questions about human evolution and the possible coexistence of Neanderthals and Denisovians. You're listening to A Week in Science from RiAus, and now 4 science headlines in 30 seconds. Nerves in our stomach may act like a body clock, telling our brain that we are full at night time but hungry during the day. Gut contents of an ancient preserved cockroach showed that they were the primary dino poo eaters of the prehistoric world. Targeting 2 specific proteins in men can stop sperm from getting into their ejaculate, providing hope for a reversible male contraceptive. And the koala's surprisingly deep growl comes from 2 vocal folds located outside their voice box. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please help us out by giving us a good rating and leaving a nice comment. That's it for this A Week in Science. For more information on these and other science news stories, go to the RiAus website, riaus.org.au. Follow us on Twitter using the hashtag WeekInSci and like us on Facebook. I'm Paul Willis. and I'll catch you next week.
Jeg er Marit. Og jeg er Kristin. Og vi vil tipse deg som norsk lytter av Skeptic Zone om skeptikermiljøet i Norge. Det finnes norske blogger og pubtreff og podcast, og foreningen Skepsis driver med slikt som disse du hører på nå. Sentralt er skepsis.no, og her publiseres det dyptgående artikler, en kalender over aktiviteter og lenker til nyttige ressurser. Skepsis-bloggen oppdateres jevnlig, og det diskuteres heftig på forumet, så stikk innom og delta du også. Skepsis.no.
Here's a message from our friends in Canberra who are recovering after running a very successful national Australian Skeptics Convention. An evening of Lawrence Krauss, Monday, the 16th of December, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. The location is the Lecture Theatre, CSIRO Discovery Centre, North Science Road, Acton, in the Australian Capital Territory, where we held the convention. Admission is free and everybody is welcome. World-renowned theoretical physicist and science communicator Professor Lawrence Krauss will be the guest of honour at a Q&A session of Canberra Skeptics. If you want to learn about everything from the Higgs boson to the Mars Curiosity rover, religion to public policy, come along and probe the mind of one of the most well-known names in science. What a great opportunity for people living in the Australian Capital Territory. If you have any questions, you want to find out more, the email address is mail@canberraskeptics.org.au, and there will be a dinner to follow the event. For more information about Canberra Skeptics, visit www.canberraskeptics.org.au. And congratulations to the incoming president of Canberra Skeptics, Lauren Cochrane, and new Vice President Amanda Duval. And many thanks to the outgoing president, Kevin Davies, who I hope now has time to put his feet up. And joining me on the line from beautiful Laguna Niguel in California, it's Brian Dunning. I hope I got that right, Brian.
You sure did indeed, sir. You're amazing.
I've been practicing. Practicing. Now, we're catching up with you because it's always good to catch up with you. And wow, what a great interview on the Skeptic Zone a couple of weeks ago with Maynard. You two had a great time.
Oh, isn't he always tons of fun? I always love talking to Maynard.
He is. But I'm catching up with you today because the big news is that you've released another book. Tell us all about it.
Skeptoid number 5, Massacres, Monsters, and Miracles. As regular listeners to the Skeptoid podcast might know, about once a year I take the best 50 episodes and compile them into a book. And the transcriptions, they're adapted for print, but they follow the podcast very closely. And this one is just all kinds of fun. We've got 2 massacres, a number of monsters, and at least one miracle. and all kinds of other great stuff. You know, the one thing that's tough about podcasts is that a lot of people still don't really even know what they are. And if you tell, your neighbor or your mom or your friend, oh, I listened to this great podcast, more than likely they're going to say, what the heck is a podcast? And so the books have been especially important for my show as a way that a lot of people can share the content who don't otherwise know what a podcast is or know even how to listen to one. So the books are great. I highly recommend them.
Well, I have to agree. I gave my mother a present about a year or so ago of 3 or 4 of your books, and she loved them. She thought they were fantastic because she's not the sort of person who would listen to a podcast, so she enjoyed them immensely.
Yeah, they're since the chapters are all single subject and fairly brief, they're also a great way to, if you have one particular issue that one of your friends is challenging you about, whether it's who knows, organic food, whatever it is, you can give them just the chapter in the book, and you're all covered.
So that's fantastic. It's the 5th book in this series, and I imagine there'll be 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and on it will go, because you have so many episodes. How many episodes of Skeptoid have there been now?
Let's see. I believe we're on 392 right now.
Ooh.
So I keep trying to catch up to the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. They always seem to be about 30 episodes ahead of me, and I think I'm narrowing in on their lead, though.
You could. You just release a couple of specials, and then you can overtake them.
The longer we go, the closer I get to them percentage-wise. So instead of regarding it as an absolutely converging series, I think eventually I will actually reach them. That's mathematically incorrect, isn't it? An absolutely converging series would actually reach them.
If it did eventually, yes.
Somebody needs to fill us in on what the correct mathematical function is.
Let the listeners ponder that one.
Thank you.
No, it's great news, because they are fantastic and easy to digest. I mean, if you've got 10 minutes or something, you can read a couple of chapters, because they are very concise. That's one of the great things about the podcast, too. And
I write at about a 5th grade level, so it's easy for anyone to understand. We had
like me.
This book I did through a Kickstarter program, because it's a huge amount of time and labor to actually compile everything into a book and get it formatted and do the indexing and everything, and so it just in my schedule I just couldn't manage it unless there was a Kickstarter program. And it went great. It fully funded, and it was successful. So then what I had to do was get everything finished, get the book indexed and formatted, and get it converted to ebooks and all that fun stuff. And then we ordered the books. They came pretty quickly in about a week or two. Just 20, 30 giant boxes of books. It was a huge mess. We had a whole bunch of people over here, and we had a boxing and shipping party, labeling and posting the boxes and everything. And then about 2-3 days later, a car, not a mail truck, but a mail car, came up to the house with one envelope and one book, or one box, and said, here, we've got a whole bunch of these. You guys need to come back to the post office and pick them up because the customs forms weren't correct. So we had to go and collect 3 giant postal bins worth of these little book-sized boxes and bring them back to the house. And here, about a week and a half later, we're still going through and manually handwriting these customs forms. So if anyone out there is listening right now and did order some books through the Kickstarter program and haven't gotten them yet, that's why. They're on the floor in my family room as the pile's gradually getting smaller and smaller, writing these customs forms. So even though the Kickstarter program was successful, it's going to end up being one of those projects that was the lowest dollar per hour project I ever worked on in my life.
Well, I'm sure the people out there who were involved in Kickstarter will appreciate the fact that you put so much effort into this. And maybe a little bit of unexpected effort as well, but I'm sure they're looking forward to getting those books.
They damn well better be.
They damn well better be. I've had a sneak peek of the ebook myself, and it works really well as an ebook. Looks great. Who wrote the foreword this time?
The foreword actually was written by a gentleman named Ron Hayden. He works in the tech sector up in Silicon Valley, and I actually put a Kickstarter reward out there and let kind of anyone who wanted to grab the gold ring, as they put it, one of the largest donation amounts, would get to write the foreword. And I was extremely gratified that he did that. He's been a great supporter of the show since its inception, and I was really thrilled to have Ron write the foreword for the book. And he did a great job too. It's really a neat foreword.
It's all good news, Brian. There you are, listeners. It's the new book from Brian Dunning. If you love the podcast, you'll love the books. Brian, how can people get their hands on their very own copy?
Well, it's actually available in all countries right now. It should be available in all countries on Amazon. If you can always go to Skeptoid.com and click on books, and there's links to all the places you can buy it online. And it's available in all ebook formats for only $5, so it's a great bargain for iBooks, Kindle, Nooks, what have you. Just search for Skeptoid, and you'll find it on pretty much any online store of your choice.
Good news. That's great news. And Brian, are there any more Australian-themed Skeptoids in the future?
I actually spoke on a radio show a couple of days ago from Arizona, and they wanted to talk about all of my Arizona-themed podcasts. I guess Frederick Valentich was the most recent Australian-themed show, and did we solve that mystery? I don't know.
I think I like to think you did.
I think we did to my satisfaction.
I think so. The other mystery is, of course, who did the voice of Valentich and the Melbourne base. But we'll let listeners ponder that.
That was it. Well, I don't do a very good Australian accent. I tried. I did my best, Steve Irwin. Crikey! But nobody bought it. So. I did find myself a token Australian to record that voice.
I'm sure he's still waiting for his check.
Listeners,
Dunning,
you decide.
You decide. Brian Dunning, all the way from California, working hard on the next episode of Skeptoid. Thanks very much, and we look forward to reading the book.
Thanks, Richard. Always a pleasure.
AstronomyCast takes a facts-based journey through the cosmos as it offers listeners weekly discussions on astronomical topics ranging from planets to cosmology. Hosted by Fraser Kane of Universe Today and myself, Dr. Pamela Gay of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, this show brings the questions of an avid astronomy lover directly to an astronomer. Together, Fraser and I explore what is known and being discovered about the universe around us. Join us each week as we take a facts-based journey through the cosmos at astronomycast.com.
A couple of nights ago, I was on a program in Australia here called The Project. Well, they used very brief clips of me. The story was about witches and witchcraft in Australia. And the 2 points I made, sort of a bit randomly thrown into the story, were that if someone is claiming that they can use deities in order to cast spells, and I would think that would be up there with unicorns. And the other point I made is if any witch out there could use magic spells or could prove they use magic spells, they would be in line for our $100,000 prize. Of course, I stand by both statements. I don't think for one moment there are deities hiding around in rocks and streams and rivers and trees that can be used in any fashion to do something. But if I am wrong, of course, or if somebody calling themselves whatever they want can use magic to cast a spell, then yes, that would qualify for the $100,000 prize. I have since been schooled on Facebook that, in fact, modern witches do not claim to use supernatural or paranormal abilities, and casting a spell is somewhat more mundane than we might have thought. It's more a psychological process. Be that as it may, the two statements stand. If someone can use magic and powers, and I would suggest that magic powers is by definition something beyond the known laws of physics, then of course that qualifies for our prize, which got me thinking about the Australian Skeptics $100,000 prize. If you're interested in applying, the money is there. And this is from our webpage at www.skeptics.com.au/features/prize with my added commentary. The $100,000 prize. Do you have psychic or paranormal powers? We don't mean illusion or trickery as stage magic, we mean things like extrasensory perception, telepathy, telekinesis, Reiki, divining for water or materials, clairvoyance, and predicting the future. Now, here's my first note. That also applies to people who claim that they can do things using energies as yet unknown to science. That's why Reiki is in there. Now, you might call Reiki paranormal or supernatural, or you may choose to say, no, that's using a natural energy. To us, that's not so important. The point is, as far as we know, Reiki has yet to be proven to be real. So that's why that's sort of in the list. And that's why we don't doggedly stick to some definition of paranormal or supernatural. If it's something beyond the known laws of physics which you can demonstrate, then please step up. The page goes on. Skeptics Challenge. Since 1980, Australian Skeptics has issued a challenge to people who claim to have extraordinary powers to demonstrate their ability under proper observing conditions. The first person to do so shall receive a great deal of recognition and prestige, as well as meeting the requirements for the awarding of the $100,000. Now, another note here. Sometimes people say, we don't want to take your challenge because we don't want all the publicity, we don't want people to know we're psychic, or words to that effect, which is a bit strange sometimes because there are a lot of people out there trumpeting the fact that they have special magical paranormal abilities and powers and putting ads in newspapers and boasting about it. So some of these people don't like to keep their light under a bushel. It goes on. We make this offer because we are sincere about seeking out the truth of claims that might be described as paranormal or that confront accepted laws of science. This is absolutely true. I'd like to know if there's something out there that science has yet to discover. We see many such claims made by professed psychics, healers, witnesses to paranormal events, and those selling devices which do the apparently improbable or even impossible, i.e. defy scientific laws. If there really is a way to generate free energy, or read minds, or to communicate with extraterrestrials, or to tell the future, we want to tell the world, and in our own way give the claimant proper recognition. Now, one in there about contacting extraterrestrials is interesting. I would say that if somebody figured out a way to communicate with extraterrestrials, unless it was using telepathy, that may not qualify. I'm not sure about that one because the claim of extraterrestrials is not actually a paranormal claim. It's quite possible that there are aliens on other planets, and it's quite possible that they're visiting Earth. I just think it's very unlikely. If they do, if one pops down tomorrow, then that's not a paranormal or supernatural claim. That's simply part of the natural universe we live in. I'm not holding my breath for that at the moment, though. It goes on. On the other hand, if a claim is proved to be unfounded or fraudulent, we reserve the right to expose this situation so that clients do not waste their money and time on a product or a service that fails, and can only ever fail, to deliver what is claimed for it. Now this, I think, is really aimed at people who are insincere, who are duping the public, who are out to make a buck based on what they know is a fake or false premise. It's not aimed at people who are sincere, I would suggest. We're not out to really denigrate sincere people. In either case, we think the public deserves to have the right to know the truth. Consequently, the Skeptics Challenge is a genuine and serious undertaking, and the $100,000 prize is a genuine offer. This is absolutely true. One of the, amongst the myriad of excuses we get why people don't want to take the challenge is it's not genuine. The skeptics really don't have the money and we're just out to make fools of people. Well, the money is really there. And if it's not, if you don't think it's there, if you think we're lying or something, then expose us. Please do. It goes on. What do you have to do? Naturally, for this amount of money, there are a few rules and conditions which apply. If you wish to try for the challenge, you should contact us For full details, briefly, this is what you have to do. You first apply in writing telling us the following very clearly and concisely. 1. What exactly is your paranormal claim? 2. Under what conditions can you perform your claim? 3. What success rate do you expect? Then, and only then, can we begin to design a test, one that is in accord with your claims. Now, I'll take a moment here to explain that we get bizarrely, repeatedly, people saying to us, oh, the Skeptics Prize is rigged, or it's never done to the person's claimed, or trying to indicate that we're not sincere. Whereas this has been in writing on our webpage for years and years and years, that the tests are designed with the help of the claimant, and they're designed based upon the claims the claimant is making. So if someone says they can divine for water, we won't test them for clairvoyance. It's the wrong claim. I can't state that enough. It's an old chestnut and people keep repeating it. It goes on. Representatives from Australian Skeptics will work with you to define a suitable and mutually agreed test procedure and to select an independent umpire. Again, I mean, this independent umpire, it's so somebody can keep an eye on us and on the claimant and make sure everything is above board and fair. The test will be run by an approved panel of officers of Australian Skeptics. If you are successful, you will be awarded $100,000. The results of this test, whether successful or not, will be published in The Skeptic, the magazine of Australian Skeptics. The news media may also be invited to witness any tests. Notes on the challenge. Australian Skeptics is a non-profit organisation, so any costs involved have to be borne by the applicant unless we agree to other arrangements. A note on this, look, if somebody can do their claim, if they can really read the mind or talk to the dead or whatever it is they want to do, then the small cost it might cost them in setting up a test or flying to see us or whatever the case may be will be repaid many times over when they win the $100,000 prize. We can't really foot the bill for all these tests simply because we'd go broke very quickly. Someone would say, oh, I can divine for water, but you need to dig up my farm. Here's the bill for $10,000 for the digger, etc., or whatever the case may be. We simply don't have the funds to fork out for every claimant's demands that come along. It just doesn't work that way. But as I said, if you can really do it, then the small amount of money you have to cough up, or even if it's a couple of $1,000s, I mean, that will be rewarded to you or returned to you many times when you win. If you'd like to receive more information about the challenge, please send an email to the challenge coordinator, and that's on a link on the website, or contact your local branch, and you can see a list of local branches on the website. Each test is tailored for the individual challenger. There it states it again. If it wasn't clear enough before, it states it again. Each test is tailored for the individual challenger. The challenger must assist with the design of the test in order that their specific ability is properly tested. The rules are simple, so we can't state it more clearly than that. Here are some of the rules. Of course, these are all up for negotiation somewhat when we come to designing the test. The test protocol is designed with the help of the challenger and, within the controls, is flexible. Only when both the Australian Skeptics and the challenger are satisfied that the test is within the guidelines and can be successfully completed does the test go ahead. During the test, an independent umpire is on hand to ensure the protocol is followed. This is a person agreeable both to the challenger and to the skeptics. The challenger must beat 1,000,000 to 1 odds against a chance result. Now, this is interesting. Some people have come back to us and said, oh, that's just ridiculous, 1,000,000 to 1. Well, you can think of it this way. If you can really do the claimed feat ability, then 1,000,000 to 1 is meaningless. It's easy. For example, if someone sits down to play the piano say Mary Had a Little Lamb. By the time they finish playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, they have beaten odds of billions to one. Because if you just sit down a piano and hit random notes, the chances of you getting Mary Had a Little Lamb are literally billions to one. The same on a keyboard. If you type hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone on a keyboard, you've beaten odds which are probably millions to one. So if you can really do your acclaimed ability, of course you can beat million to one odds. That's what people do all the time when they can really do something. Again, this million to one is a guideline. It depends on the person's claim. The test must give a definite yes or no result. That means we try to remove any grey area for both parties' sake. In other words, we don't want the skeptics to say, well, you nearly got it, but that's not good enough. Sorry, we're going to fail you. And we don't want the challenger to say, well, I nearly got it, and that's good enough, so that's a pass. It has to be very clear in each run of the test, if that's how the test works, that it either passes or fails. It's a yes or a no, and there's no wiggle worm for the skeptics or the challenger. If the challenger is found to be cheating, the test is terminated. And I dare say if the independent umpire found the skeptics to be cheating, the test would also be terminated. Following a successful test, the prize will be paid to the challenger and or any person or organisation you may nominate. In other words, if you want us to keep the money, we will. If you want us to give the money to the eye hospital, we will, or to the Cat Protection Society, or to your mother, or whoever. And that is illustrated in the next point, which says the prize may be distributed in any way the successful challenger sees fit, to a trust, a charity, or some other person. There is no need for the challenger to come into contact with the money at all, if he or she so chooses. The money is offered in the genuine hope that we are able to advance the investigation into claims of the paranormal. Australian Skeptics does not seek to embarrass or ridicule anyone. Now, another quick point that you would find out when you begin the process is that it's a two-stage process. And this is the same with the James Randi Educational Foundation too. We have a preliminary test, which is more relaxed and more informal, in which we invite the applicant to demonstrate, and it can be in front of an independent umpire too, demonstrate to us the claim, the ability. If they can do that to the satisfaction of us and to them and to the independent umpire, then we proceed to the full-blown test. Why do we do this? Well, it's so that we have a good chance of awarding the money to the successful applicant. In other words, if someone really can't do their claim for whatever reason, we'd rather find out a bit earlier on before too much time and effort and money from any party is spent, then after we do a big formal test. But again, if the person can really do what they claim they can do, then the informal, more relaxed test with lower benchmarks for passing should be a piece of cake. No one has ever passed the informal part of the test, the part of the test with a lower passing mark. So, make of that what you will. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. I think next week I might slot in the interview with Dr. Paul Willis from the National Convention. Yeah, I'll see if I can do that. And thanks again to Maynard, who was so busy at the convention, and he was so grateful to the listeners, those listeners, and I'm grateful too, who chipped in to help get Maynard to the convention. We got him a lovely hotel room, so he was nice and comfortable, and breakfast, so it was great. It's really nice to know that there are listeners out there who like to support the Skeptic Zone, and thank you for doing so. Anyway, yes, lots of interviews coming up from Maynard, lots over the next coming weeks. Now, before I go, And because I get so many requests to do this, I'm going to, this time I'm going to throw a 10-sided die. 10-sided. Normally it's a 20, so I'll give you a better chance. Think of a number from 1 to 10. Use your psychic powers. Here we go. Here we go. 7. Until next week, this is Richard Saunders, signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.